David Swanson, the producer of Michigan Tea Events. I got active with the Tea Party movement because socialists have sort of taken over our government. The Democrat Party has been taken over by George Soros, and recently the Communist Party USA is suing the Democrat Party for adopting their platform. We know that communism doesn't work. There isn't a communist nation in the world that has successfully provided for its people. And we know that free market capitalism works. If you don't believe me, go to pbs.com and watch on the web, or you can get DVDs of Commanding Heights, Battle for the World Economy, which goes over free market economy and how price and wage controls do not work. This is something that comes as PBS made this out of a book by Daniel Yergin by the same name. The book's in the libraries. You can check this out for yourself. So what we need to know is that capitalism works, but communism doesn't work, but the world is being pushed into communism slowly by the Fabian socialists. I want to talk about this is a long-standing conspiracy to take over the world by socialists. A book here, Brotherhood of Darkness by Stanley Monteith. He quit his medical practice for a few years to study the New World Order and what was going on with that. He's discovered that through the notes of Carroll Quigley, he found things that were quite interesting. He's discovered that way back around the Boer War, England was confiscating the mineral wealth of Africa, and a guy that profited greatly from that was Cecil Rhodes. Rhodes became wealthy. He wasn't such a weirdo, but he was surrounded by occultists, people who practiced occult, and they took over his wealth and used it. His Rhodes Scholarship was supposed to provide for scholars to become leaders in helping the English Empire. Well, the Rhodes Scholarship was perverted, and it's being used to promote scholars to become world leaders, and occultists, they've got a goal to introduce the Antichrist, and that's what the Rhodes Scholarship is about. So when you hear that Bill Clinton is a Rhodes Scholar, that doesn't mean he's a really intelligent intellectual. It just means that he trained himself, got a good education to become a world leader, to advance communism, and that's where this goes. So if Monteith studied a lot of things, he came up with he writes Manly P. Hall, the Masonic philosopher of modern times, in his book Lectures on Ancient Philosophy, wrote, "Freemasonry is a fraternity within a fraternity, an outer organization concealing an inner brotherhood of the elect. It is necessary to establish the existence of these two separate yet interdependent orders, one visible and the other invisible. The visible society is a splendid camaraderie of free and accepted men enjoined to devote themselves to ethical, educational, fraternal, patriotic, and humanitarian concerns. The invisible society is a secret and most august fraternity whose members are dedicated to the service of a mysterious arcanorum, a secret or mystery. In each generation, only a few are accepted into the inner sanctuary of the work." The Freemasonry is, at the upper levels, is satanic. At the lower levels, it's a bunch of nice guys, or patriotic guys, but the lower levels, they kneel before the worshipful master, and they're told to ask for more light, but they're in darkness, they're not told what's really going on, and they never receive any light. They are just used. They are just used. So there is a satanic order of in Freemasonry that goes back a long ways. It actually ties in with the Knights Templar. If you want to look that up, you can find things on the web like that. There's a book, The Hope of the Wicked, The Master Plan to Rule the World by Ted Flynn. He talks about the ruling elites. Okay, the ruling elites are the people who are pushing this global warming nonsense, and they're pushing Marxism, communism. They invented communism. The Illuminati, Adam Weishaupt's organization that instigated the French Revolution by manipulating grain markets, causing a famine. He talks about it. This is really a concise book. Tells us all about these things, Freemasonry, and but in The Hope of the Wicked, we go back to after the Civil War. Albert Pike, the leader of Freemasonry, he led a group he had a company of soldiers, and they committed such atrocities in the Pea Ridge Massacre that foreign governments were threatening to attack the United States to put a stop to such things. And after the Civil War, after Lincoln was assassinated, Pike was arrested and charged with treason. However, Andrew Johnson was a Freemason, and so Pike got to Johnson and got himself a pardon, presidential pardon, moved into the White House, and was operating from the White House. Albert Pike, head of American Freemasonry, and they had a ceremony in the White House where Pike elevated Johnson 3 levels in Freemasonry, and so it's the Illuminati was taken over by Giuseppe Mazzini, and there was a letter. You can search this. There's a lot of sources that talk about the letter from Albert Pike of Freemasonry to Giuseppe Mazzini, the head of the Illuminati. Giuseppe Mazzini formed Italy into what it is today. He kicked the Pope out of Rome, but France invaded, and Mazzini had to sue for peace, and they set up the Vatican. But this very evil man, Mr. Mazzini, is very evil. He formed the mafia after Islam. If you quit the Brotherhood, the penalty is death. All forms of thievery and thuggery are acceptable for the cause of the Brotherhood. Mafia is an acronym from Italian words that say Mazzini authorizes thefts, fires, and poisonings. So anyways, here Albert Pike wrote a letter to Giuseppe Mazzini in 1871. It was on the wall in the British Museum Library in London until 1977. And the letter talks about creating 3 world wars. Okay, 3 world wars, so that these ruling elites these occultic, satanic world elites can rule the world. Quoting from the book, "The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and making that country a fortress of atheistic communism." All right, and the agents of the Illuminati will use the British and Germanic empires to create this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and to weaken the religions. Okay, now religions. One of the goals of the Illuminati was to destroy all monarchies, make one government really. The Second World War will be taking advantage of the difference between the fascists and the political Zionists. War must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and political Zionism is strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. Now, Nazism in 1871, how did you know that? Well, these guys created the term Nazi. They made Hitler what he was. This was planned out before the turn of the century. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until a time when we need it for the final social cataclysm. Okay, now here we go, the Third World War. Now, the first two world wars, this all happened, this is all history to us. This happened as planned. Now, of course, this letter was removed by a new head of the London Museum had it removed and said it never existed. But this letter has been written about by other people who have seen it and read it, copied it down. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantages of the differences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism mutually destroy each other. Doesn't that sound like the news today? Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. Boy, we're economically exhausted here. We shall unleash the nihilists, Occupy Wall Street characters, and the atheists. Richard Dawkins, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism and the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere, the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, the multitude, those delusioned with Christianity, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer. Okay, these guys are demonic, aren't they? Brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Okay, so this is the coming of the Antichrist. The Antichrist will come, and these guys are preparing for it. There's a lot to be said about that, but here, Pastor Richard Wurmbrand, who wrote Marx and Satan. Wurmbrand was a pastor in Romania. He was sharing the gospel message to Russian soldiers in Romania and during occupation recently. Wurmbrand went before Congress and and took off his shirt and showed the scars of the tortures that he endured for many years by the communists. And he studied about Karl Marx. Karl Marx, the author of Communism, through the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital. He proves that Karl Marx was someone who he attended black masses. In other words, he worshipped the devil. Karl Marx wrote a poem called Ulanem, O-U-L-A-N-E-M, which is an anagram, which Satanists use a lot, anagrams. It was an anagram for Emmanuel, Ulanem. And from Ulanem, Wurmbrand notes that Marx wrote, and they are also Ulanem, Ulanem. The name rings forth like death, rings forth until it dies away in a wretched crawl. Stop, I've got it now. It rises from my soul, as clear as air, as strong as my bones. Okay, this black masses are when they recite Catholic Mass in reverse word order, because Satan just does the opposite of what God does. So, Satan, who his worshippers see in their hallucinatory orgies, actually speaks through them. Marx is only Satan's mouthpiece when he utters in his poem Invocation of One in Despair, the words, I wish to avenge myself against the one who rules above. Now at the end of Ulanem, if there is a something which devours, I'll leap within it, though I bring the world to ruins, the world which bulks between me and the abyss. I will smash to pieces with my mouth enduring curses. I'll throw my arms around its harsh reality. Embracing me, the world will dumbly pass away and then sink down to utter nothingness. Perished with no existence. That would be really living. Karl Marx. Karl Marx's goal in life was not to establish a new system for people to live in harmony. His goal was to plunge headlong into hell with such force that he drew most of humanity in behind him, and he would laugh at them about it. This man was demonically possessed. Karl Marx was just as sick as they come. He is not an atheist. He is an illuminist. Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin attended black masses. They denounce God in public. They pronounce atheism, but they practice Satanism. They acknowledge God, but they hate God, and they perform the most sadistic rituals. So I hope you realize that the Tea Party movement is what our country needs to fight the socialist takeover of our country and ruining our country. But it's ruining our country with a cause. The cause is the satanic cause. Communism was created by the Illuminati, and Karl Marx was a member of the League of the Just, which was a cell group of the Illuminati, and he didn't write anything new that he created. He just wrote out the goals of the Illuminati in a way that it would inspire humanity to follow in these teachings. Colonel Edward Mandell House was controlling the governments of the world, and he moved into the White House. He handpicked Woodrow Wilson, got him elected president, and then his number one goal was to get the Federal Reserve Bill passed. And they got that bill passed, and then they modified it, and that's where That's where this Federal Reserve, the international bankers are controlling our money and funding whatever they want. They cause financial trouble around the world, and they use U.S. taxpayer dollars to bail them out. The TARP was just a bailout of these international bankers and their interests. They're just using our money, and doesn't seem to be anything we can do about it because they control the presidents. Actually, this started with Meyer Rothschild. M. Shell changed his name to Rothschild. This pervert became super wealthy when he got a spy that gave him information before the King of England that Napoleon had lost the war. He manipulated stock market and made a huge fortune, and set up an international banking system which controls governments. Federal Reserve System came out of that, mainly financed by Rothschild's representative at the Federal Reserve meeting at Jekyll Island was Paul Warburg, and he was into financing a lot of the up-and-coming troublemakers of the world, Franco, Mussolini, Hitler, Trotsky, Lenin. All of these guys got seed money from millions of dollars from Warburg and the Rothschilds bankers to get them going so that they could create trouble in the world, so that Rothschild was financing both sides of wars so that he could collect money on the debt of the nations. So the nations are indebted to the bankers, and that's why we got this huge debt here. It started way back, and it's come now to where American debt is unpayable. It's just going to crash. They're intending to crash the economy of the world so that they can introduce the Antichrist ultimately.
Okay, so Edward Mandell House moved into the White House, and his number one job was to get the Federal Reserve bill passed. He had 2 rooms in the White House, and he was busy, people coming and going, and the G. Edward Griffin has written a book called G. Edward Griffin has written a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island. It's all about how the Federal Reserve was formed. It was formed by the Rockefellers and the major bankers, and Paul Warburg from the Rothschilds in Europe came to make this thing. They tried to pass it through Congress, and they weren't buying it, so they changed it, and they made it look like it was very unfavorable to the bankers. And the only opposition they had was Clarence Darrow, the atheist lawyer for the Scopes Monkey trial. So he was the only one that was opposing the Federal Reserve bill. So they appointed him to be Secretary of State, and he was quiet about it. And they got the bill passed, and then they changed it and changed it and changed it and made it. They're still working on it. They're still working on us. We are the victims. The American taxpayers are the victims of these international bankers who are funding both sides of wars and collecting interest on the debt of nations, amassing vast fortunes, selling interest on nothing, really, to quote G. Edward Griffin.
To start World War I, 33rd degree Freemason Winston Churchill set up where the British destroyer Reliant was to rendezvous with the Lusitania, and off the shores of at a location off of Ireland where 2 ships had been sunk, so a U-boat was active in the area. The Lusitania was supposed to rendezvous with the Reliant. The destroyer Reliant was recalled by the Secretary of Navy, Sir Winston Churchill halfway out, and the Lusitania was certainly sunk. The Lusitania they've shown was loaded with munitions, and the one torpedo sank the ship, where the sister ship had 2 torpedoes hit it at one time, and it didn't sink. So World War I was set up. And in World War II, we have Roosevelt had his most trusted advisor, Alger Hiss, was prosecuted by Richard Nixon. Alger Hiss was a paid Soviet agent, and so Alger Hiss, the Venona papers say there were 47 Soviet spies in the U.S. government. Some have estimated there were more like 300 Soviet spies in the U.S. government. The communists have been working on taking over our country for a long time.
Trotsky and Lenin, Hitler and Franco and all these guys were given seed money to get their evil movements going by Paul Warburg. And then World War II broke out, and it was all manipulated by these bankers so they could collect this interest. Good old Franklin Delano Roosevelt was trying to impose a socialistic solutions to the downturn in the economy, which was most likely induced by these bankers and their manipulations, just like they induced the famine of the French Revolution. All of these, you think these natural cycles of economics, they're really not that natural. They are induced by people who control money, have the power of politics. So, and I'm just not talking here. I've got all these books that prove it. Free market economy works. I mentioned before the PBS.org, free market economy works. Commanding Heights, Battle for the World Economy. But the controls of the economy are done by people who have agendas to make profits, or to, as ultimately, as I read in Albert Pike's letter, to bring about 3 world wars, which will eventually, cause a great catastrophe, bringing the Antichrist as the hero to save everyone, to save the world. Yes, from what was induced upon them. So, World War II with Roosevelt. A lot of people say Pearl Harbor was a setup. It sure looks like it. They'll deny it till their grave. But Roosevelt was asked before World War II broke out, why aren't your policies working, rather than discuss what his programs were doing or anything might be wrong with his programs. What he did was said, some people are trying to oppose what we're trying to do. Some people are opposing what we're trying to do, and we're going to make them pay for it. So he continued with the class struggle rhetoric, okay, as a deception for the simple people. Well, the simple people, they just, we got to do something about that. We got to take sides in this. Well, we don't want to take sides. Roosevelt's not explaining what he's doing because he really wants to ruin the economy. The Great Depression brought about, was the only way out of that Great Depression was World War II. And now that we're in this Great Depression, which was induced by this economic crisis, mortgage collapse, and the TARP bailouts and stuff, that was all just that's all bringing that breaks out of NAFTA. It says sending American jobs overseas. They're diminishing the United States so that so they can bring about economic collapse. And out of that economic collapse, of course, you cannot buy, trade, or sell unless you have the mark of the beast, which Jesus foretold to the Apostle John in the book of Revelation. So we see, the Tea Party's not going to win. The conservatism is going to be quashed by it. But, if we quit trying, that's going to be held up. That'll be held up against us. So keep working at it. Do the right things. Pay attention to what is right. Learn what is right. And don't be deceived. Franklin Roosevelt's top advisor was Alger Hiss. Alger Hiss as it turned out, was a paid Soviet agent. Now, how many CIA agents have defected to the Soviet Union and become and written books in the Soviet Union warning the people of the Soviet Union or any of these communist countries, about the evil things that the CIA is doing to ruin their country. Well, Whittaker Chambers was a KGB agent or Soviet agent, and he thought that it was a real rotten thing for Stalin's Secret Service or his KGB or whatever, to subvert and undermine this great nation of the United States. And so he gave evidence that Alger Hiss was a paid Soviet agent. And Richard Nixon prosecuted the case. So if you look at the pictures of Roosevelt, Stalin, and Churchill at Yalta and these places, there's Alger Hiss in the picture advising President Roosevelt, paid Soviet agent. So Alger Hiss, and it turns out there were 27 to 40 some say as many as 300 Soviet agents in appointed positions in American government when during World War II under Franklin Roosevelt. Well, let's see now. Franklin Roosevelt, 32nd degree Mason. Harry Truman, 33rd degree Mason. And if you look at the most important achievement that Harry Truman considered in his life was his elevation to the 33rd degree of American Freemasonry. And so you see he's wearing this gold chain and the eye of the Horus pendant, and he's wearing his Masonic stuff here. So the leadership changed from one Mason to another. Stalin is considered a Freemason as well, and of course you know that Winston Churchill was 33rd degree Freemason as well. So the agents of the Illuminati through Britain and Germany caused World War II, and there's an interesting book called Hitler's Cross, one of the most foremost Christian authors of our day, Erwin Lutzer. E-R-W-I-N, Erwin Lutzer wrote this book, Hitler's Cross. And in this book, he makes the case that the judgment of Germany was because of anti-Semitism that goes all the way back to Luther. Okay, that World War II was a judgment on Germany. Germany was judged by God. That's he makes the case. Read it for yourself. But we know that the Illuminati was planning this wrong before. Does that mean that the devil is planning the future? No, it's just God has foreseen the future. God is sovereign Lord of the universe. He knows what's going to happen. He knows the plans of the devil, and he defeats the plans of the devil. It's just that God does not defeat the plan of the devil with the devilish deeds. God only uses righteousness and rightness. So God does things in his way, in his time. So we can scramble around and gain all the wealth we want, but as Jesus said, what does it profit a man if he gain the whole world but lose his soul? That means eternal separation from God. That means punishment in eternal torment, which Jesus described as pretty bad stuff. Fire which is never quenched and worm which never ceases. Hitler had a symptom psychologist called Adolf's syndrome, which means he was seeing things that nobody else saw, and he was terrified out of his mind over these things, especially the last couple of years. He was not just scared of assassination attempts. He was seeing things that weren't there. He was demon possessed. That guy was he was out of it. So anyways, we come out of World War II, and of course the meteoric rise of Eisenhower through the ranks of the military to take over all of the finish the war off on Germany. Well, they landed. Patton got in trouble for being too hard on his soldiers and missing out some things on in Sicily, so he was kind of set aside for a couple of years. But they dragged the war on. It's been stated by several authorities. They dragged the war on. They finally invaded in D-Day. They sent Patton west. If they would have taken over Berlin, they would have cut off the head of the snake of Nazism. It would have collapsed. There would have been peace. They could have ended the war a lot sooner than they did. Eisenhower spread the army out, and they slowly moved across Germany so that Russia could get all that they could. And so that's sort of a betrayal. Don't have to believe me. Check it out. There's plenty of stuff available on that if you get the right sources. If you read communist sources like Howard Zinn, who wrote American history for American teenagers, American history books in public schools today, written by Howard Zinn, the avowed communist, then you're reading the wrong stuff. You don't want to read stuff by the people that are socialist in nature.
The stained glass window in the of the Fabian Society at the Beatrice Webb House in Surrey, England, features Sidney Webb and George Bernard Shaw striking the earth with hammers to remold it nearer to the heart's desire. And there's a wolf in sheep's clothing. The Fabian socialists want to impose communism on the world slowly and gradually, because people wouldn't stand for it if you tried to push it too hard and too fast.
And of course there was the betrayal of China. The Secretary of the Military there, Marshall, he betrayed China. He sold Chiang Kai-shek some equipment. He held it up and never got shipped. Finally, when they did get it after they escaped to Taiwan, it was useless. The rifles wouldn't fire. The pin, the bolts were damaged or something. It was a betrayal. It was a setup. They induced China to fall under the tyrant Mao Zedong.
So we have real enemy in socialism and communism. It is God's enemy, and the Tea Party will not work unless we have a Christian revival, because Christianity is the truth. God created the world about 6,000 years ago. There is no scientific evidence that rocks are billions of years old and these fossils are not billions of years old. There's plenty of creationist materials. You can look up Institute for Creation Research, and you can check out Hovind Ministry has got a lot of very convincing information on creation. God created the world and the universe, and He set His rules, and we must abide by them. God created heaven and hell, and the destiny of everyone born in this world is hell unless they accept God's one plan of salvation. Come to God through Christ. Christ died for your sins. He took the penalty of sin. He was the sacrifice that bulls and rams could not complete. They had to be offered periodically under the Mosaic system. But Christ fulfilled the laws of Moses. He was the sacrifice, and His sacrifice is for everyone. So with Christian revival and political activism, our nation was founded by Christians, and these Christians came up with a constitution of representative government that we can, under the United States, has prospered because it recognizes God. We have unalienable rights, not from the King of England, but from God Himself, the Creator of the universe. So I hope you find this inspiring, and I hope you get involved with the Tea Party, and I hope you get involved with a real church. Okay, now some churches don't have a good message. They have a watered down Christian message, and they preach more of a excuse me. They preach. A lot of churches are preaching social justice instead of the gospel-saving message. These churches usually are affiliated with the National Council of Churches, which is a Marxist front organization. You need to get involved in a Bible teaching evangelical church. The Catholic Church is a good church, but there are a lot of churches which are more involved in promoting the homosexual agenda or whatever the ruling elites. The ruling elites are hiding in plain sight. They are the Trilateral Commission. They are the Club of Rome. They are who are the ruling elites that are ruling the world? They're hiding in plain sight. The Trilateral Commission, the Club of Rome, the Bilderbergers, the International Monetary Fund. These guys, they work in concert. They have their Bilderberg meetings, and they have other meetings, the Bohemian Grove, and all of these. These guys are up to no good.
Ultimately, the people calling the shots, the people who raise up Lee Harvey Oswald or Sirhan Sirhan and Hinckley, you know, he gets out of prison on weekends to see his girlfriend, his mother. I mean, you know, who's provides these assassins? Who's really running the show? Who's got control of all the money? Go to committeeof300.pdf and read about Dr. John Coleman, the intelligence officer who just decided to blow the whistle on all of this operations here. He names the people of the Committee of 300 at the end of his writing there in the PDF. Now this PDF, you can see it online, but it was written before Clinton was elected. But you can see the pattern, and it gives a, you know, he says that they have agents infiltrate the conservative organizations, like the NAACP. Started out conservative, you know, Republicans fighting for equality for blacks and things. Now the NAACP is just a leftist mouthpiece, betraying the black cause. And they've got 21 goals, and the Committee of 300 has listed their 21 goals, and it's to get rid of most of the people in the world. You know, and if you look at these billionaires, they get together, you look up billionaire conference or something. Even Bill Gates has joined the Billionaires Club. Warren Buffett, Maurice Strong, the de facto head of the United Nations, another sociopathic organization that's ruining the world.
Dr. John Coleman has written something called the Committee of 300. You can read it on committeeof300.pdf if you do a web search. He talks about a lot of things, but he says that the United States has been under a no-growth policy for a long time. I'd say 70 years. Committee of 300 online there, the PDF it was written before Bill Clinton was elected. So it's a bit dated, but he's got more current, he's updated that if you buy his stuff online if you want, but he says that the ruling elites, and he lists them, the Committee of 300 at the end of his writing there, and they've been controlling the world for a long time, controlling the governments and controlling political events. So we need a grassroots movement. A Tea Party movement is an honest, patriotic American grassroots movement to retake our country. Only a small a small segment of the population, a radical activist segment of the population, has ruined the Soviet Union, China, Cambodia, Vietnam, Eastern Europe. These communist countries, they've collapsed because the Soviet Union collapsed because 43% of their gross national product, the 46% of their economy was based on slave labor in the gulags. How can you run a country when people are just enslaved? Slaves is not a profitable institution, especially when your slaves are dying in Siberia. It just doesn't work. So Reagan increased the defense spending and trying to keep up. The Soviet Union collapsed. Thank God for Reagan. And so, of course, the ruling elites didn't like all of this. They tried to assassinate him. Good thing this Secret Service kept them going till the end, but they're back at it.
We have a lot of trouble, and it's been going for a long time. It's Truman, Mr. 33rd degree Mason. He dragged out they started that war in Korea, and they kept it going. They pulled MacArthur out for trying to win the war, and keeping things in Vietnam. Don't go into Laos or Cambodia, and stay out of there. These things are just it's criminal at the highest levels. We see that these wars are being fomented just to keep these international bankers wealthier and wealthier. And so what we as citizens must do is get involved. We have a constitution. And if we can elect the right people, we find out who they are, we get them going, we support them. We start with a grassroots movement. The Tea Party can do it, but they have to be right with God, because God is in control of all things. If you don't believe in God, well, tough luck for you, man, because there is no evidence to prove that evolution is true. All of science, as I see it, and I've been studying for a long time, science shows us that evolution is impossible. If you look at science objectively, the age of the earth and all of that stuff, God created the world about 6,000 years ago. Pretty soon we're going to have 7 years of tribulation, and there'll be 1,000 years of peace with Jesus as king in Jerusalem, and then the final judgment. And so if you read the book of Revelation, you get a blessing, and you'll understand what the future holds. And you have a hope, only hope in Jesus Christ. If you don't have hope in Jesus Christ, who will return, he said he would return. Okay, and he'll return just before mankind annihilates ourselves. So he's not going to let it happen, but he's going to show how evil the humanity is. Humanity is just evil, cannot be reformed, but God has provided a plan. He has provided the Savior, Jesus Christ. All you have to do, what Jesus said, read the book of John. If you read that, it says, Jesus, if you believe it, if you just believe me, my sheep hear my voice and they obey me. Okay, I give them eternal life, and no one can snatch them from my hand. He said at the prayer in Gethsemane. So there's our hope. We're not going to overcome the evil demonic forces, but if we work at it, we can hold it off. We can do the right things. If we know the right things, we have to do the things that we know is right. So, and we bring us to the modern day. Vietnam was started by Johnson there. The Gulf of Tonkin was a phony deal. The Vietnamese boats never fired on the American ships, and so it was all a phony deal. So anyways, he escalated the war. Nixon finally did what he could to pound the North Vietnamese into submission. They signed the Paris Accords, and Americans pulled out, and then the North Vietnamese invaded. According to the Paris Accords, the United States should have come in to rescue South Vietnam. And of course, the South Vietnamese army was not as holding to their discipline like they should. So, from the people that have told me, I know guys that were served over there, and they weren't going in like they should. But anyways, nonetheless, the United States was obligated to help South Vietnam, and the Democrats in Congress refused to allow any aid to South Vietnam, and it fell pretty quickly. And if you go on the web, you can see Yuri Bezmenov, a KGB agent who defected, and he wrote a couple books here. Love Letter to America under the pen name Thomas Schumann, and another one, Thought Police, by Thomas Schumann. But that was really Yuri Bezmenov, a KGB agent, and he says that in one night, the Vietnamese, North Vietnamese, the communists, arrested everyone who worked with the Americans. They knew who they were by a network of informants. They arrested them in one night, took them out of town, didn't take them to jail, took them out of town, and shot them. Okay, and arresting people in the middle of the night, is a Russian practice. Started with under Stalin. Under Stalin, the Yezhov method. This guy, the dwarf Yezhov, he came up with a plan to arrest people in the middle of the night, keep them in jail, don't let them sleep, interrogate them all night, all day. March them up and down hallways. Don't let them sleep until they sign a confession, and then let them sleep for a little bit, 10, 20, half hour or something, and then wake them up, say, look, you signed this confession, and then they execute them. Now, there was a Western journalist they did that too, but the journalist, when they showed him, you signed this, he grabbed it and ripped it up, and eventually they had to let him go. He wouldn't fall for that. But anyways, arresting in the middle of the night is something the communists do, and they either shoot you or you don't get to sleep until you sign a confession, and then they shoot you. So anyway, if you want to let communism come in, communism, of course, is Marxist and is demonic, and so this whole battle is a battle between Jesus and Satan, and I recommend you read the Bible. But now, the Democrat Party has been taken over by George Soros. There's a book here, Shadow Warriors by Kenneth Timmerman. Talks about how these sociopathic perverts, get in key positions and they ruin everything. And the Democrat Party is totally taken over by communists. The Communist Party is suing the Democrat Party for adopting their platform. Well, you can't get it any plainer than that. George Soros calls the Democrat Party the Soros Party because he has taken it over. Even John McCain, if you remember the McCain-Feingold bill, that was a sellout to George Soros. Hillary Care was something that Soros came up with, okay? And Obamacare is nothing but repackaged Hillary Care. Once they have control over your retirement through Social Security, they have control over your health care, and they've got, and they ruin all the industries. You can't get a job anywhere, so you've got unemployment or whatever. Pretty soon, everybody in the world will either be working for the government or in a union, or they'll be in a concentration camp or something. Now, I don't know if I mentioned, but one of the things they start out, the Commanding Heights, one of the beginning topic was a spy left the Soviet Union. He defected, he got out of the Soviet Union, and he reported to MI5 that 43% of the Soviet economy was based on slave labor in the gulags. That's not a free market economy, is it? No. They were arresting people for trumped up charges, putting them off in the gulag, working them to death. And, they had enough people to do that. They didn't care about their people. So they work them to death for, checking out a book in the library that's on the banned list. But it wasn't on the banned list when you checked it out, but, we're going to make it retroactive. That's what happened to Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And he wrote the Gulag Archipelago. That's how he was in the Gulag. And forced labor. Free market economy will bring flourishing prosperity, and the prime example of that is Hong Kong. Hong Kong had the most millionaires anywhere of any concentration in the world because the British government of Hong Kong didn't bother anybody unless they committed a criminal act or something. They had free enterprise all over the place. People were just going to town, making money hand over fist, so exporting or whatever, finding ways. So I hope you find that this is interesting. I hope you realize that we need a Christian revival. Christianity is the only religion that has factual evidence that it's true. The historical eyewitness accounts of Jesus appearing to the disciples and to people, they're not refuted, and so the Bible is a book that has never been proven wrong, and there's no reason to believe in evolution, which has no evidence to prove that it's right. So you read your Bible, get active in politics, find out who's running, support the guys that are doing the right things, get rid of these people like Harry Reid, Nancy Pelosi, and especially Barack Obama. That guy here, that'll be a topic of a whole 2-hour show or something, because this guy, everything he's done in his life is just anti-American, and George Soros promoted him, and the news media just loves him because they're all in on it. The news media is in on it. You want to understand how the news media is perverted, go to Media Research Center, okay, MRC, I think .com, and check it out. They are reporting how the media is just committing malpractice. There's a film, Media Malpractice, you can check out about Hillary and Obama and McCain and what was going on there. So our only hope is to do the right things, get right with God, accept Jesus, and get politically active. If you don't get politically active, you're going to be ruled by evil people.
So I hope you are inspired to get politically active. I hope you can help these young Republicans get started in politics. We can take our country back. The Constitution is a system of representative government. Two can play this game of control, and we can take our country back. So get active in a good Tea Party, and if any weirdos come along and try to influence in the wrong way, shame them off. And thank you for watching. And this is Michigan Tea Events. I hope you can get involved, because if you don't, our children are going to be paying for a lot of things that we never asked for.